I'm Tamara, 23 years old, home for spring break from Northwestern. Standing outside my childhood bedroom door, I noticed something wrong. A new deadbolt gleamed above the original doorknob. "Don't go in there," Mom said behind me, her voice too sharp. "It's just for storage now," Dad added quickly, sweat beading on his forehead despite our cool hallway. Storage. In my perfectly good bedroom, their eyes darted between each other like ping-pong balls. Something was terribly wrong, and they were both terrible liars. The confusion hit me like a physical force as I stood frozen in that hallway. My mother, Susan, had already turned away, her shoulders rigid beneath her cardigan. My father, Daniel, lingered for a moment longer, his mouth opening and closing as if words were fighting to escape. "Tamara, sweetie," he finally managed, "your mother worked really hard reorganizing the house. Why don't you get settled in the guest room? We've made it nice for you." The guest room. In my own home. The absurdity of it made my chest tight. This was the bedroom where I'd spent 18 years of my life, where my height mark still decorated the doorframe, where glow-in-the-dark stars probably still dotted the ceiling. I forced a smile. "Sure, Dad, the guest room sounds great." But as they retreated downstairs, I remained rooted in place, studying that door like it held secrets of the universe. The deadbolt was industrial grade, the kind you'd see on exterior doors. Kneeling down, I examined the gap beneath the door. Instead of the usual sliver of light, I saw darkness and what looked like weather stripping, the kind used for soundproofing. My fingers traced the doorframe, finding 3 more locks I hadn't noticed initially. A chain lock near the top, a sliding bolt in the middle, another keyed lock near the bottom. Who needs 5 locks on an interior door? At dinner, the weirdness amplified. Nathan, my 18-year-old brother, pushed his mashed potatoes around his plate without taking a single bite. Every time I mentioned anything about the house, about my room, about being home, his eyes would flick nervously toward our parents. "So Nathan," I tried keeping my tone light, "have you been using my old room for anything? Gaming setup, maybe?" His fork clattered against his plate. Mom's hand shot out, gripping his wrist before he could speak. "Nathan's been focused on his college applications," she said smoothly. "Haven't you, honey?" He nodded rapidly like a bobblehead in an earthquake. The dining room felt different too. The wall where my childhood photos once created a chronological journey from baby to high school graduation was now decorated with generic landscape prints. Every trace of my existence near that hallway had been erased. "I'm going to grab some water," I announced, standing abruptly. In the kitchen, I let the faucet run cold while my mind raced. Through the window, I could see into our backyard where Mom's garden grew in neat rows. Everything appeared normal out there. Inside was where the wrongness lived. Returning to the dining room, I caught the tail end of a hushed conversation. Dad's voice carried despite his attempt at whispering, "She's too smart, she'll figure it out." "Not if we're careful," Mom replied. They straightened as I entered, smiles plastered on their faces like masks. After dinner, I helped clear the table, noting how Nathan practically sprinted to his room the moment Mom excused him. Dad disappeared into his home office, and Mom busied herself with dishes, declining my offer to help with unusual firmness. Alone in the living room, I studied the ceiling, mapping the layout of the house above. My bedroom sat directly over Dad's office. If there were new sounds up there, heavy equipment, perhaps he'd hear it first. The revelation came at 10:30 when I ventured to the basement under the pretense of looking for my old yearbooks. The electrical panel, usually ignored behind old coats, had been recently accessed. Fresh labels marked the breakers in Dad's neat handwriting. Most were standard kitchen outlets, living room, lights, master bedroom, but 3 new breakers had been added, all on a separate surge protector line. The labels made my blood run cold. Medical equipment room 1, medical equipment room 2, medical equipment room 3. Medical equipment in my bedroom. My hands trembled as I photographed the panel with my phone. Whatever was happening in that room, it required serious power. The kind of power that hospital machinery demanded, the kind that kept people alive. Back in the guest room, I lay on the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling. Every sound from above made me tense. Was that a machine beeping, footsteps, a voice. The puzzle pieces swirled in my mind. The locks, the soundproofing, the medical equipment, the erased photos, Nathan's terror, my parents' guilty behavior. Someone was in my room, someone who needed medical care, someone my parents desperately wanted to keep hidden. But who and why? Sleep eluded me as questions multiplied like cells dividing. By 3 a.m, I'd developed a dozen theories, each more disturbing than the last. Whatever secret my parents were harboring behind that multiply locked door, it was serious enough to transform them into people I barely recognized. The spring break I'd imagined, lazy mornings, mom's pancakes, catching up with high school friends, had evaporated. In its place was a mystery that made my childhood home feel like a stranger's house. Tomorrow, I decided I'd find answers. One way or another, I'd discover what lay behind that forbidden door. Sleep finally claimed me near dawn, but I woke with yesterday's discoveries burning in my mind. The house was quiet. Too quiet for a Saturday morning. No coffee brewing, no dad watching the news, no mom humming in the kitchen. A note on the kitchen counter explained their absence. At book club, back by noon, cereal in pantry, love mom. Book club on Saturday morning. Mom's book club met Wednesday evenings. Had met Wednesday evenings for the past 15 years. Another lie to add to the growing collection. Nathan's door stood ajar, his room empty. His bike was gone from the garage. Perfect. The house was mine to investigate. Dad's office door wasn't locked, an oversight that spoke volumes about their rattled state. His desktop computer would be password protected, but physical documents were what I sought anyway. If my parents were hiding something significant, there'd be a paper trail. The filing cabinet yielded nothing unusual in the front sections. Tax returns, mortgage papers, insurance documents, all boringly normal. But the back section, usually reserved for warranties and instruction manuals, bulged with new folders. My fingers walked through the tabs until I found what I'd been searching for. Credit card statements going back 6 months, far longer than Dad usually kept them. The charges made my stomach drop. Med Supply Direct, $3,412. Comfort Care Solutions, $8,943. Pharmacare Wholesale, $2,318. The list continued, page after page of medical suppliers, pharmaceutical companies, specialized equipment dealers. One receipt detailed the items: adjustable hospital bed with rails, IV pole with multiple hooks, pulse oximeter with continuous monitoring, suction machine, oxygen concentrator, the kind of equipment that transformed bedrooms into miniature intensive care units. Another folder contained delivery confirmations. Every single one showed our address, but the recipient name varied. Sometimes it was S. Chen, Mom's maiden name. Other times it was D. Morrison, a name I didn't recognize. Never our actual family name. Behind the receipts, I found printouts of email exchanges. Mom's personal email address was at the top, but I didn't recognize the account she was corresponding with, Dr. Harriet Morgenstern. The messages were carefully worded but revealing: patient showing increased agitation during evening hours. Recommend adjusting sedative dosage. New bed sores developing despite rotation schedule. Ordering specialized mattress overlay. Family stress levels concerning. Remember, caregiver burnout serves no one. The latest email dated 3 days ago made me sink into Dad's chair. Susan, I understand your concerns about discovery. The patient's condition remains stable but declining. We discussed this possibility. Home care at this level cannot continue indefinitely. Consider alternatives before the situation becomes untenable. Mom's response was brief. No facilities, we've discussed this, she stays here. A woman was living in my bedroom. A woman whose existence my parents were desperately concealing. Deeper in the drawer beneath old warranty cards, I struck gold. Or rather, I struck heartbreak. A legal document, crisp and official, partially tucked into a manila envelope. Healthcare proxy form. The name at the top made the room spin: Eleanor Marie Patterson. Grandma. But Grandma died 2 years ago. I was in Spain junior year abroad when Mom called with the news. Heart attack in her sleep, quick and peaceful. I'd sobbed in my Barcelona apartment, guilt-ridden that I hadn't been there. The funeral was held before I could fly back. Mom said Grandma had prepaid for quick arrangements. Except here was a healthcare proxy dated 6 months ago. You can't sign legal documents when you're dead. My hands shook as I photographed every document, every receipt, every email. The printer, Sashi's scanner, hummed to life, and I held my breath. But no one burst through the door. I made copies of the most damning evidence, folding them carefully into my jacket pocket. A car door slammed outside. Through the office window, I saw our neighbor pulling into their driveway. False alarm, but it reminded me that my parents could return any moment. I restored everything exactly as I'd found it, even recreating the slight angle of the healthcare proxy sticking out of its envelope. Let them think their secrets remained hidden. Back in the guest room, I spread my phone photos across the bed, zooming in on details. The timeline emerged like a photograph developing in solution. 2 years ago, Grandma supposedly dies while I'm in Spain. 1 year and 6 months ago, first medical equipment purchases appear. 1 year ago, Dr. Morgenstern begins regular email correspondence. 6 months ago, healthcare proxy signed by deceased grandmother. The truth was as clear as it was incomprehensible. My parents had faked my grandmother's death. They'd been hiding her in my bedroom for 2 years, caring for her with medical equipment, while the world believed her buried in Riverside Cemetery. But why Grandma had been difficult, yes. Stubborn and sharp-tongued, especially after Grandpa died. She and Mom had fought constantly about everything from politics to pot roast recipes. But this was beyond family dysfunction. My phone buzzed. Nathan, where are you? Me guest room. Where are you? Nathan, coming home. We need to talk. Meet me in the garage in 5. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When Nathan finally appeared, wheeling his bike through the side door, his face was pale beneath his spring tan. "They told me you'd figure it out," he said without preamble. "I wanted to tell you so many times, Tamara. Every video call, every text. It's been eating me alive." Grandma's alive. It wasn't a question. He nodded, tears pooling in his eyes. "She's really sick. Has been for a while. Mom and Dad, they said it was the only way." "The only way to what?" "I don't know." His voice cracked. "They don't tell me everything. Just that I can never tell anyone, especially not you. They said you'd try to put her in a home that you wouldn't understand." "Understand what, Nathan? This is insane. They faked her death." "I know." He was full-on crying now, shoulders shaking. "I know it's crazy, but she's still Grandma, you know. She smiles when I read to her. Sometimes she remembers my name." The fight drained out of me, seeing my baby brother so broken. I pulled him into a hug, feeling him sob against my shoulder like he used to when he was little. "It's okay," I whispered. "We'll figure this out together." But even as I comforted him, my mind raced with new questions. If Grandma was simply ill, why the elaborate deception? Why fake her death instead of getting proper care? What were my parents so desperate to hide? And more terrifying, what would they do when they discovered I knew the truth? Nathan and I maintained an uneasy truce throughout dinner. He'd promised not to tell our parents about our conversation, and I'd promised not to confront them yet. We needed more information before making any moves. Mom chatted about her book club. Apparently they'd actually gone after their morning errands, while Dad discussed spring lawn care with enthusiasm nobody felt. Nathan pushed food around his plate again, occasionally shooting me meaningful looks. I smiled and nodded and counted the minutes until I could escape. By 11, the house had settled into its nighttime rhythm. Parents in bed, Nathan's TV murmuring through the walls, me wide awake in the guest room, plotting my next move. I just decided to attempt picking the bedroom locks when headlights swept across my window. A car pulled into our driveway, engine cutting off quietly. No doors slammed. Whoever had arrived was trying not to wake anyone. I crept to the window, peeling back the curtain just enough to see. A woman in purple scrubs emerged from a sedan medical bag in hand. She moved with the confident efficiency of someone who'd made this trip many times before. The side door opened before she could knock. Mom stood there in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel like she'd been waiting. They exchanged whispered words I couldn't catch, then both disappeared inside. This was my chance. I slipped into the hallway, bare feet, silent on the carpet. Their voices drifted up from the kitchen, discussing medication schedules and something about preventing bed sores. Professional talk, nurse talk. I positioned myself behind the linen closet door, cracked open just enough to give me a view of the hallway. The floorboards creaked as they climbed the stairs. Mom led the way, the nurse following with practiced quiet. At my bedroom door, Mom produced a key ring that would make a janitor jealous. The locks opened in sequence, deadbolt chain, slide bottom lock. Each click echoed in the silent house. "She was restless earlier," Mom whispered, "kept calling for Harold." "That's normal," the nurse replied. "The confusion increases at night. We call it sundowning." Grandpa Harold had been dead for 5 years. Grandma calling for him meant her mind was slipping backward through time. The door swung open, revealing glimpses of blue light from medical equipment. Machines beeped in steady rhythm. The nurse entered, first Mom hovering at the threshold. "Hello, Eleanor," the nurse said gently. "It's Patricia. Time for your evening medications." Patricia. The name hit me like ice water. Aunt Patricia, Mom's younger sister, the one who'd supposedly moved to Phoenix after a massive fight about Grandpa's will. Another lie. She hadn't moved away. She'd become Grandma's night nurse. "I don't want the pills," a voice responded, weak, raspy, but unmistakably Grandma. "They make me fuzzy." "Now, Eleanor." Patricia's tone remained professionally kind. "You know the medications help with the pain. Just a few pills, and then you can rest." "Where's Harold? He promised to take me dancing." "He'll be back soon," Mom lied smoothly. "Take your medicine so you'll be ready when he arrives." The domesticity of their deception sickened me. How many nights had they performed this routine? How many lies had they told to keep Grandma compliant? Through the crack, I watched Patricia check monitors, adjust IV lines, mark things on a chart. Mom stood guard occasionally, glancing toward the hallway. I pressed myself deeper into the closet's shadows. "Her blood pressure's elevated," Patricia noted. "Has she been agitated during the day?" "She kept asking about Tamara," Mom admitted. "Heard her voice downstairs and got confused." My heart clenched. Grandma had heard me. Some part of her struggling mind recognized her granddaughter's presence. "We'll need to be more careful," Patricia said. "The Haldol can only do so much. If she becomes too aware—" "She won't," Mom interrupted. "We've come too far to fail now." They worked in silence for several minutes. I heard water, running pills, rattling in bottles, the adjustment of bed rails. Normal sounds of caregiving rendered sinister by secrecy. "There," Patricia finally announced. "She'll sleep through the night. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time unless you need me sooner." They emerged from the room, Mom carefully relocking each mechanism. Patricia gathered her supplies while Mom walked her downstairs. I remained frozen in place long after the car pulled away. The guest room felt like a cage when I returned to it. Every instinct screamed at me to burst through those locks to rescue my grandmother from whatever twisted scenario my family had created. But I needed to be smart. Emotional reactions would only give my parents reason to shut me out completely. I texted Nathan, saw the nurse. It was Aunt Patricia. His response came quickly despite the late hour. "I'm sorry, they made her help. Something about her nursing license." Another puzzle piece, but the picture remained incomplete. Why would Patricia risk her career for this? What hold did my parents have over her? Sleep was impossible. I lay in bed replaying every detail, every word. Grandma was alive but medicated into compliance, hidden away like a shameful secret while the world believed her dead. The cruelty of it made my chest tight. At 3 a.m, unable to bear the stillness any longer, I crept back to the hallway. The house slept deeply now, Dad snoring audible through their bedroom door. I pressed my ear against my old bedroom door, holding my breath. Machines hummed and beeped beyond the wood. But underneath the mechanical noise, I heard something that broke my heart. Soft crying. Grandma was awake alone, weeping in the dark. "I want to go home." Her voice barely carried through the soundproofing. "Please, someone, I want to go home." She was home, in the house where she'd raised her daughters, where she'd baked cookies for her grandchildren, where she'd mourned her husband. But locks and lies had transformed her sanctuary into a prison. I pressed my palm flat against the door, willing her to feel my presence. "I'm here, Grandma," I whispered too quietly for her to hear. "I'm going to get you out." Because now I understood. This wasn't just about exposing my parents' deception. This was a rescue mission. Whatever their reasons, whatever had driven them to this extreme, they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. My grandmother was a prisoner in my childhood bedroom, and I was going to set her free. The question was how to do it without destroying my entire family in the process. But listening to her cry, I realized that might be a price worth paying. Some secrets were too terrible to keep. Morning came too soon, bringing with it the charade of family breakfast. Dad made his famous Sunday pancakes, while Mom squeezed fresh orange juice, both performing normalcy, like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Nathan stared at his plate syrup pooling around untouched pancakes. "I thought we'd hit the farmer's market today," Mom suggested brightly. "The Hendersons said they have amazing strawberries this week." "Can't," I replied, not trusting myself to say more. Her smile flickered. "Oh, plans with friends." "Something like that." Dad cleared his throat. "Well, Nathan can come, right sport." Nathan's fork clattered to his plate. "I have homework." "On Sunday," Mom's voice sharpened. "Spring break Sunday." The tension stretched until Dad laughed forcefully. "Let the kids be Susan. Remember when we were that age?" But Mom's eyes stayed on Nathan, reading his discomfort like a familiar book. I excused myself before the interrogation could begin, knowing I was leaving my brother in the hot seat, but needing him rattled enough to talk. I found him an hour later in the garage, his bicycle turned upside down while he adjusted the chain, his safe space where he'd always retreated when life got complicated. "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. "I can't." He didn't look up from his work. "You don't understand what they'll do." "Who will do, Mom and Dad? They're not going to hurt you, Nathan." His hand stilled on the bike chain. "Not hurt, but my college fund my entire future. They made it very clear what happens if I tell anyone." "They threatened you." A bitter laugh escaped him. "Not threatened. Explained. Very reasonably. How Grandma's Social Security still comes in. How her pension from Grandpa's job still deposits monthly. How that money's been going into my college account. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Fraud. Federal fraud. My parents hadn't just faked a death, they'd been stealing from the government for 2 years. "Nathan," I knelt beside him, forcing him to meet my eyes. "This is bigger than college money. This is criminal." "You think I don't know that—" Tears streamed down his face, dropping onto the garage floor. "You think I haven't been sick about it every single day. But what am I supposed to do? I'm 18 tomorrow. They're my parents. And Grandma, she needs help. She needs proper help, in a facility with real doctors, not hidden away like some shameful secret." "She had real doctors." The words exploded out of him. At first, when she started forgetting things, mixing up names, they took her to specialists, tried medications, but then what? He wiped his nose with his sleeve, looking younger than his 18 years. Then they found out about the money. Grandma had been planning something. Mom found documents, a new will. She was going to leave everything to some medical research place, cut the whole family out. Another piece clicked into place. When was this? Right before her death. Mom went crazy. Said Grandma had lost her mind, that the disease was making her paranoid. They argued constantly. Then one day, Mom announced Grandma had died in her sleep. And you just accepted that. I was 16. What was I supposed to do? Mom said it was what Grandma would have wanted to be remembered as herself, not some confused old woman. Said the disease had already killed the real her. I sat back on my heels, processing. but she didn't have the disease bad enough to die, so they just kept her. Nathan nodded miserably. It started as temporary, just until they could figure out the legal stuff. Mom kept saying 1 more month and then another. Before we knew it, a year had passed, then 2, and now they're trapped in their own lie. We're all trapped. His voice broke completely. I help take care of her tomorrow. After school, I sit with her, read her the newspaper, play her favorite songs. Sometimes she knows me, calls me her handsome grandson. Other times she's scared and confused and drugged. The drugs help. She gets so agitated without them, tries to leave to call people. Last month, she somehow got to the window and started screaming for help. If the neighbors had heard, maybe they should have. Nathan's face went white. You don't mean that. Don't Grandma's being held against her will. That's kidnapping Nathan. Elder abuse. Mom and Dad aren't protecting her. They're protecting themselves. From what prison you want our parents in prison? The question hung between us like a blade. Could I send my own parents to jail, destroy Nathan's future, shatter our family beyond repair? I want Grandma free, I said finally, whatever that takes. Nathan stood abruptly, knocking over his bike tools. You've been gone, Tamara. Off at your perfect college with your perfect life. You don't know what it's been like here, watching her fade day by day, seeing Mom cry every night. Dad started drinking again. Did you know that Patricia barely speaks to anyone anymore? We're all broken. That's not my fault. No, but fixing it isn't your job either. Just leave it alone, please. 1 more year and you'll graduate, get a job somewhere far away. You never have to come home again if you don't want. Just don't destroy everything on your way out. And Grandma, she just stays locked up until she actually dies. Nathan's shoulders slumped. She's dying anyway. The doctors said 2 years at most. She's 83 tomorrow. Even without the dementia, she's not exactly running marathons. That's not the point, and you know it. Then what is the point? He was shouting now, years of suppressed emotion erupting. You want to be the hero, save the day. This isn't one of your college debate topics. This is our family, our lives. You start making calls, reporting this, and everyone loses. Everyone. The garage door suddenly rolled up, flooding the space with sunlight. Dad stood silhouetted against the brightness, car keys in hand. Everything okay in here? His casual tone didn't match his watchful eyes. Fine, I said quickly, just helping Nathan with his bike. Dad's gaze moved between us, reading the tear tracks on Nathan's face, the defensive set of my shoulders. Your mother needs things from the store. Nathan, why don't you come with me? Give you a break from that homework. It wasn't a request. Nathan shot me a pleading look as he followed Dad to the car. Don't do anything stupid, his expression begged. Wait. But I'd waited 2 years without knowing it. My grandmother had been prisoner in my own home while I studied abroad, attended parties, lived my life in ignorant bliss. The guilt of that unknowing abandonment burned like acid. As their car disappeared down the street, I made my decision. Nathan was right about one thing. I had been gone. But I was here now, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. The late-night visitor had been Aunt Patricia. Tomorrow, I'd track her down. If anyone could help me understand this mess, it would be the sister who'd supposedly fled to Phoenix, but instead spent her nights caring for her dead mother. Every family had secrets, but ours had built a prison from them, brick by brick, lie by lie. And somewhere in that construction was a weak point, a place where truth could break through. I just had to find it before the whole structure came crashing down. Monday arrived with spring rain pattering against the windows. My parents left for work with obvious reluctance, Mom reminding me 3 times about leftover lasagna in the fridge, and Dad suggesting I might enjoy visiting the new mall downtown. Their attempts to keep me out of the house were transparently desperate. Nathan escaped to school early, avoiding eye contact at breakfast. The garage conversation had shifted something between us. He'd chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. Alone in the house, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. My roommate, Ashley, was a film major with an equipment closet worth more than my car. One call and 15 minutes of vague explanations later, she agreed to overnight express a small surveillance camera. "Working on a documentary?" she asked. "Something like that." While waiting for the delivery, I researched elder abuse laws, Social Security fraud penalties, healthcare proxy regulations. Each search made my stomach churn harder. My parents weren't facing a slap on the wrist if caught. They were looking at federal prison time. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon. The FedEx driver handed over Ashley's package with a smile, unaware he was delivering evidence-gathering equipment. Inside, the camera was smaller than I'd expected, a black square barely larger than a dice. Ashley had included instructions in her loopy handwriting. "Battery lasts 48 hours. Motion activated. Links to your phone. Don't get caught." The afternoon stretched endlessly as I waited for my parents to return. I needed them home following their routine before I could place the camera. Too early and they might spot it during their paranoid security checks. They arrived together at 5:30, Mom carrying grocery bags, while Dad hauled in what looked like medical supplies. I helped unload, noting the industrial-sized containers of Ensure boxes of latex gloves and prescription bags from 3 different pharmacies. "Having the Johnsons over for dinner," Mom announced. "You remember them. Their daughter just got into Yale." Translation: "Stay in your room and don't embarrass us." Perfect. The Johnsons arrived at 7, bringing wine and stories about their brilliant daughter. I made appropriate small talk before excusing myself with homework claims. But instead of the guest room, I crept to the hallway air vent facing my old bedroom. The vent cover came loose with careful prying. Inside, the ductwork was dusty but spacious enough for the camera. I positioned it carefully, angling the lens through the grate slats for maximum coverage of the door area. The app on my phone confirmed the connection, a clear view of the forbidden threshold. Back in the guest room, I watched my phone screen like it held winning lottery numbers. For 2 hours, nothing. Then at 9:43, movement. Mom appeared first, checking over her shoulder before producing her ring of keys. Dad followed with a dinner tray. Even through the small camera, I could see his hands shaking slightly. The Johnsons' laughter echoed from downstairs, covering the sound of locks opening. They disappeared inside for 12 minutes. The camera caught glimpses through the doorway. The blue glow of machines, the metal rails of a hospital bed, Mom's silhouette bending over someone. When they emerged, Dad was crying. "She knew me tonight," he whispered. "Called me Danny like when I was little." Mom's face was stone. "Don't read too much into it. The medicine makes her say things." "She's my mother, Susan, not just some problem to manage. You think I don't know that you think this is easy for me." They locked up and returned to their guests, smiles firmly back in place. I saved the video clip, my first piece of concrete evidence. The camera proved its worth over the following days. I documented every visitor, every medication delivery, every moment my parents thought went unwitnessed. Tuesday afternoon brought a medical supply delivery. The driver wheeled in an oxygen concentrator, the kind used for advanced lung disease. Mom signed for it using a name I didn't recognize, Sarah Morrison. Wednesday morning, while my parents worked, I caught clear footage of the bedroom interior. A postal worker appeared with certified mail requiring signature. Through some bureaucratic mix-up, he'd come to the front door instead of being redirected like usual. "Eleanor Patterson," he called out, checking his tablet. "Need a signature for pension documentation." I signed for my dead grandmother, my hand surprisingly steady. The manila envelope contained quarterly statements from Grandpa's union pension. $62,000 deposited year to date into an account I'd bet wasn't in Grandma's name anymore. But Thursday night brought the most damning evidence. The camera alert chimed at 1 in the morning. On screen, a man in an expensive suit argued with my parents in the hallway. Even through the phone's small speaker, his anger was palpable. "This has gone too far," he hissed. 2 years, Susan. You promised it would be temporary." "Keep your voice down," Mom snapped. "You want the whole neighborhood to hear. Maybe they should. Maybe someone needs to stop this insanity." Dad stepped forward. "You're in this too, Marcus. Don't pretend you're innocent." Marcus, the family lawyer, the one who'd supposedly handled Grandma's estate after her death. "I filed paperwork based on your lies," Marcus shot back. "That's forgery. I could be disbarred. Hell, we could all end up in federal prison." "Which is why you're going to keep quiet," Mom said coldly. "Unless you want to explain to the Bar Association why you didn't verify the death certificate, why you expedited probate proceedings without proper documentation." The lawyer's shoulders sagged. "She needs real care, Susan. Whatever she did with the will, she's still a human being. She's getting care, the best we can provide. In secret, drugged into compliance. This isn't care, it's imprisonment." Mom's voice turned dangerous. She imprisoned herself the day she decided to betray her family. "We're just returning the favor." The footage showed Marcus storming off my parents, retreating into their bedroom. But I'd heard enough. This wasn't just about hiding Grandma's existence. This was about punishment, revenge for some perceived betrayal involving her will. Friday morning, I reviewed all the saved clips, building a digital case file. The evidence was overwhelming, but also damning for everyone involved. Patricia, Marcus, my parents. They'd all participated in the cover-up. Even Nathan, bringing meals and reading newspapers, was technically complicit. The weight of decision pressed down on me. Using this footage would destroy more than just my parents. It would unravel an entire network of complicity, taking down family and friends alike. But then I'd replay the clip of Grandma crying in the dark, begging to go home, and my resolve would harden. Whatever sins she'd committed in my mother's eyes, she didn't deserve this. Nobody did. The camera battery died Friday night, its job done. I'd captured enough evidence to blow the whole conspiracy wide open. The question now was how to use it. Going to the police felt too nuclear, too final. Once that machinery started, there'd be no controlling where it led. But I couldn't just confront my parents either. They'd proven capable of extraordinary deception when cornered. I needed an ally, someone already inside the conspiracy who might be convinced to help, someone with medical knowledge and legal access to Grandma. I needed Aunt Patricia. The irony wasn't lost on me. The aunt who'd supposedly fled after a family feud was now my best hope for resolving an even bigger family crisis. But first I had to find her. And I had to do it without tipping off my increasingly paranoid parents that their daughter had become their biggest threat. Saturday morning brought an unexpected opportunity. Mom announced they were attending a charity luncheon, the kind of event where appearances mattered more than attendance. They couldn't skip without raising questions. "We'll be back by 4, Dad said, adjusting his tie with nervous fingers. "Nathan will be home if you need anything." But Nathan had already texted me, "Working extra shift at the store. Can't cover for them anymore." The house would be mine for hours, time enough to chase down the lead that had been nagging at me since discovering Grandma's survival. Her house. According to the official story, Grandma's house had been sold shortly after her death to cover final expenses. But something about that had always felt wrong. Mom had been evasive about details, changing the subject whenever I asked about retrieving personal items from my grandmother's home. The drive to Grandma's neighborhood took 20 minutes. Tree-lined streets gave way to the older section of town, where post-war houses sat on generous lots. Her yellow Craftsman stood exactly as I remembered, down to the garden gnomes flanking the front path. Not just unsold, maintained. The lawn was freshly cut flower beds, weeded windows clean. Someone was caring for this supposedly sold property. I parked 3 houses down and approached carefully. The spare key still hid beneath the ceramic frog by the back door, exactly where Grandma had kept it for 30 years. Some habits ran too deep to break even in deception. The key turned easily. I stepped into Grandma's kitchen and froze. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. Her coffee mug sat by the sink, lipstick stain still visible on the rim. Mail lay sorted on the counter, all recent, all addressed to Eleanor Patterson. The calendar on the wall showed the current month appointments penciled in Grandma's shaky handwriting. This wasn't a house frozen in time. This was a house waiting for its owner to return. I moved through rooms that echoed with memory. The living room where Grandma had taught me to knit. The dining room where we'd celebrated countless birthdays, everything meticulously preserved, like a museum to a life interrupted rather than ended. Her study provided the answers I sought. The desk drawers had been rifled through, papers, disturbed folders reorganized by hands less careful than Grandma's. But they'd missed the false bottom in the filing cabinet, the hiding spot Grandpa had built during his suspicious years. Inside lay treasure financial documents, investment portfolios, property deeds. Grandma hadn't just been comfortable, she'd been wealthy. Stocks in pharmaceutical companies that had exploded in value, real estate holdings across 3 states, patents for medical devices Grandpa had invented still generating royalties. The numbers made me dizzy. Conservative estimate put her net worth at over $12 million. No wonder Mom had panicked about the will. This wasn't about losing an inheritance. This was about losing a fortune. A leather journal caught my eye hidden beneath the financial papers, Grandma's private thoughts in her careful script. I flipped to the entries from 2 years ago, just before her death. March 15th. Visited lawyer today. Mr. Chen drew up the new will as requested. Susan won't be happy, but I can't stand by and watch her greed corrupt the family. The money has changed her, changed them all. Better it goes to research than feeding their material obsessions. March 18th. Susan found the draft will in my purse. The confrontation was horrible. She accused me of dementia, of being manipulated. But my mind is clear. Clearer than it's been in years. I see what my money has done to my daughters. Patricia, addicted to pills she can afford too easily. Susan, measuring love in dollar signs. This has to stop. March 22nd. They've been putting something in my tea. I can taste it. Makes me foggy, confused. Susan smiles and says it's for my own good. I've stopped drinking it, poured in the plants when she's not looking. The ficus is dying. March 28th. Scared. Susan brought papers today, wanted me to sign. Couldn't read them properly. Vision blurry. Refused. She said I'll sign eventually, one way or another. My own daughter. What have I created? April 1st. Last entry. If something happens, I want it known I'm of sound mind. I love my family but won't enable their destruction. The new will stands. May God forgive us all. The entries ended there. 3 days later, Mom called me in Spain with news of Grandma's sudden death. But she hadn't died. She'd just been silenced. A filing box in the closet held more evidence. Medical records showed Grandma had been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, the kind millions of elderly people lived with independently. Not dementia, not anything requiring the level of intervention my parents had staged. There were letters, too. Correspondence with the Alzheimer's Research Foundation about establishing an Eleanor Patterson Memorial Fund. Plans to donate her entire estate to finding cures for the disease that had claimed several of her friends. Noble intentions that had signed her prison warrant. A car door slammed outside. I peered through the curtains to see a mail truck at the curb. The postal worker deposited mail in the box, then drove away. Someone was still collecting mail here. Someone who wanted to maintain the illusion that Eleanor Patterson lived at this address. Time was running short. I photographed everything. Journal entries, financial documents, medical records. The real will was probably in a safety deposit box somewhere, but I had enough to understand the motive behind Grandma's captivity. This wasn't about protecting a confused old woman. This was about protecting $12 million from going to charity instead of family pockets. On my way out, I stopped in Grandma's bedroom. Her reading glasses lay on the nightstand beside a half-finished crossword puzzle. The date on the newspaper. 2 years ago, the week she'd died. They'd taken her in the middle of normal life. Probably drugged her tea just like she'd suspected, then convinced the world she'd passed peacefully in her sleep. All to prevent a will from being executed. All to keep millions in the family. I reset everything exactly as found, locked the door, replaced the key. Let them think their secret remained safe. But as I drove away, rage burned in my chest like swallowed fire. My parents weren't misguided caregivers overwhelmed by a loved one's decline. They were criminals who'd imprisoned their own mother for money, who'd drugged her, isolated her, stripped away her autonomy and dignity because she dared to control her own wealth. The evidence on my phone could destroy them, but first I needed to find Patricia, because in her journal, Grandma had mentioned something that chilled me to the bone. Patricia's pill addiction, the leverage my parents might hold over their medical professional sister, the reason a trained nurse would participate in this nightmare. Every thread I pulled revealed new horrors, but I was done being the ignorant daughter, the convenient absence. Grandma had wanted her money to serve a purpose beyond family greed. The least I could do was honor that wish, even if it meant burning down everything my parents had built on the foundation of her captivity. Finding Dr. Harriet Morgenstern proved easier than expected. A simple search revealed her practice, a concierge medical service specializing in discreet home health care for discerning families. The website reeked of money and secrets. I called Monday morning, adopting my most professional voice. "Hello, I'm Tamara Morrison, a medical student at Northwestern doing research on home-based elder care. I was wondering if Dr. Morgenstern might have 30 minutes to discuss her practice." "Dr. Morgenstern doesn't typically participate in student research," the receptionist said coolly. "Of course I understand. Please mention that my focus is on families managing complex situations outside traditional healthcare facilities, particularly cases where privacy is paramount." A pause. "Hold, please." 2 minutes later, Dr. Morgenstern can see you Thursday at 3. 15 minutes only. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the intervening days perfecting my cover story, researching medical terminology, even borrowing a white coat from a pre-med friend. If I was playing a medical student, I'd be convincing. The practice occupied the top floor of a gleaming medical building downtown. Everything whispered expensive, from the marble floors to the original artwork. The receptionist barely glanced up as she directed me to a waiting room that felt more like a luxury hotel lobby. "Ms. Morrison." A woman in her 50s appeared, silver hair pulled back severely. "I'm Dr. Morgenstern. I understand you're researching home care." Her office continued the luxury theme. Leather chairs, mahogany desk diplomas from Johns Hopkins and Yale. This wasn't some back alley operation. Whatever Dr. Morgenstern was doing for my parents, she was doing it with full medical credentials. "Thank you for seeing me." I began pulling out a notebook like a diligent student. "I'm particularly interested in cases where families choose home care over facilities, even when the patient requires significant medical intervention." Her eyes sharpened. "That's quite specific for a student project." My grandmother suffered from dementia before she passed. My family struggled with care decisions. It made me passionate about understanding all options. "I see," she settled behind her desk. "Well, every situation is unique. Some families have resources to provide hospital-level care at home. Others have special circumstances that make traditional facilities inadvisable." Special circumstances. Privacy concerns. Public figures who can't risk media attention. Families with complicated dynamics where facility staff might not understand the full picture. I scribbled notes playing my role. How do you handle situations where family members disagree about care? In my experience, the family member with medical power of attorney makes decisions, though sometimes— She paused, choosing words carefully. "Sometimes families present unified fronts that mask deeper conflicts." That must put you in a difficult position. My obligation is to my patient, but defining their best interest can be complex when family dynamics are involved. Time to push. Have you ever encountered situations where you suspected the care wasn't entirely voluntary? Her expression cooled. "What exactly are you researching, Ms. Morrison?" "Just theoretical scenarios. For instance, if an elderly patient with mild cognitive impairment was being kept at home against their wishes, how would a physician navigate that ethically? That would be elder abuse. Any physician would be mandated to report it." Even if the family had power of attorney, even if they claimed it was for the patient's own good. She stood abruptly. I think we're done here. Your research seems to be veering into legal territory better suited for law enforcement than medical students. I'm sorry if I've overstepped. It's just, in my research, I've come across mentions of your work with the Chen family. Their approach to home care seems particularly comprehensive. The name hit like I'd hoped. Her face went pale knuckles white as she gripped the desk edge. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who knows Eleanor Patterson didn't die 2 years ago. Someone who knows you've been treating her in secret, keeping her drugged and compliant, while her family steals her money. She sank back into her chair. You're the granddaughter, Tamara. She talks about you sometimes when the medications wear off. My composure cracked. She remembers me. Fragments. She asks if you're still in Spain, still dancing. Says you have your grandfather's eyes. I haven't danced since high school. Tears threatened. How bad is she? Dr. Morgenstern rubbed her face, suddenly looking older. The cognitive impairment is real, but manageable. With proper treatment, she could have years of quality life. But the cocktail they have her on. Benzodiazepines, antipsychotic sedatives. It's keeping her docile, but destroying her mind. Then why are you helping them? I'm not proud of it. Her voice broke. Your mother found out about my son. He's an addict. Prescription drugs. I've been writing scripts to keep him stable, technically illegal. But what mother wouldn't Susan threaten to report me unless I helped with Eleanor? Another victim of my mother's manipulation. What kind of person uses someone's sick child as leverage? A desperate one. Your mother genuinely believes Eleanor was going to destroy the family by giving away the money. In her mind, she's protecting everyone. By imprisoning her own mother, by controlling a situation that spiraled out of control. It started as temporary, just until they could contest the will. But Eleanor is tougher than they expected. She kept fighting, trying to escape, calling for help. So they increased the medications, built more locks, justified each escalation as necessary. I have evidence, videos, documents. I could end this tomorrow. And send your parents to prison. Destroy your brother's future, cost Patricia, her nursing license. Ensure I lose my medical license and my son loses his only support. She laughed bitterly. Your grandmother created a powder keg of money and family dysfunction. You light that fuse, everyone burns. So what? We just leave her there. I've been reducing her medications gradually. Telling your parents it's to prevent tolerance buildup. She's more alert lately, which is dangerous for them but necessary for her. If you're smart about this, if you work with the right people. Like who? She pulled out a business card. Adult Protective Services. Ask for Margaret Walsh. Tell her Dr. Morgenstern referred you regarding a complex elder care situation requiring discreet intervention. She'll understand. You've talked to her. I've been building a case for months, but I needed someone with standing. Someone who couldn't be blackmailed or threatened. The granddaughter who's been away, who just discovered the truth. You're perfect. My family will be destroyed. Your family is already destroyed. The question is whether Eleanor dies in that room or lives her remaining years in freedom. I took the card with shaking hands. The medications, can the damage be reversed? Some of it. With proper treatment, she could regain significant function. But every day matters now. The drugs, the isolation, the lack of stimulation. It's killing her faster than any disease. How long does she have? At current doses, 6 months, maybe less. Your parents know it too. I've heard them discussing accelerating the timeline. The words hit like ice water. They're planning to kill her. And they're planning to let her die. There's a difference legally, if not morally. Increase the sedatives, decrease the nutrition. She'll slip away peacefully, another elderly woman claimed by dementia. No one will question it. Except she doesn't have dementia. She does now. induced by medications reversible with treatment but real enough for any death certificate. The full horror of it overwhelmed me. This wasn't just false imprisonment. This was slow-motion murder executed by her own children for money. "Thank you for telling me the truth," I managed. "I'm tired of lying, tired of being complicit. Your grandmother deserves better than all of us." She stood extending her hand. "Be careful, Tamara. Your mother is beyond desperate now. Desperate people do desperate things." I left her office with Margaret Walsh's card burning in my pocket. The elegant medical building felt like a mausoleum built on the bones of compromised ethics and family secrets. In my car, I stared at the business card. One phone call would start an avalanche that would bury my family. But doing nothing meant watching my grandmother die by degrees, murdered by the children she'd raised. There was no good choice, only the choice I could live with. I dialed the number before I could change my mind. Adult Protective Services, Margaret Walsh speaking. "Ms. Walsh, my name is Tamara Patterson. Dr. Morgenstern referred me. I need to report an elder abuse situation involving my grandmother, Eleanor Patterson." "I've been expecting your call," she said gently. "How quickly can you meet?" The avalanche had started. All I could do now was try to control where the rocks fell. My phone buzzed as I sat in the parking lot after calling APS. Unknown number, local area code. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Tamara, this is your Uncle Robert. Nathan gave me your number. We need to talk." Robert, Mom's brother who'd fallen out of favor years ago, another family ghost. "I don't know what Nathan told you." "He told me you know about Eleanor, that you're planning something. Please meet with me before you do anything drastic." "Why should I trust you? You've known for 2 years and done nothing." "I've done more than you know. Meet me at the Coffee Bean on 5th Street in an hour. I'll explain everything." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Uncle Robert had been persona non grata in our house for as long as I could remember. Maybe that made him exactly the ally I needed. He was already there when I arrived, hunched over a laptop in the corner booth. The years hadn't been kind. His hair was more gray than brown, deep lines etched around his eyes. He looked up as I approached, and I saw Grandma in his features. "You look like her," he said as I sat down. "Eleanor at that age. Same determined jaw." "Let's skip the family reunion pleasantries. What do you want?" He turned his laptop toward me. "To show you this." Audio files filled the screen, dozens of them labeled with dates going back 18 months. He clicked one at random. Mom's voice filled the space between us. "She took more pills today than yesterday. Soon we can increase the bedtime dose without suspicion." Dad's reply, "The sooner the better. I can't keep doing this, Susan." "You think I enjoy it, but we've come too far to stop now." Robert stopped the playback. "I've been recording every conversation I've had with them for 1.5 years. Every admission, every plan, every justification." "How?" Smartphone in my pocket. "They pat me down for wires like we're in some crime movie, never think about the phone." He laughed bitterly. "Your parents watch too much TV." "Why record them?" "Insurance. They threatened me early on, said they'd manufacture evidence that I'd been stealing from Eleanor. I needed protection." "But you never used the recordings." His shoulders sagged. "Because I'm a coward. Because they're still my sisters. Because I kept hoping they'd come to their senses. Instead, they're planning to kill her." His coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "What?" I told him about Dr. Morgenstern, the increased medications, the 6-month timeline. Watch the color drain from his face as he processed the truth. "I knew they were desperate, but this..." He pulled up another file. "Listen to this one, from last week." Susan's voice again, but slurred now. "Drinking. Remember when she used to make us matching dresses, spent hours on that ancient sewing machine?" Patricia responding, "She was a good mother." Was she good mothers don't threaten to abandon their children, don't dangle inheritance like a carrot to make us dance? She never did that. Didn't she? Every choice came with a price tag. Marry the right man, get a wedding, choose the wrong career, get written out. She controlled us with that money our whole lives. So now we control her. How does that make us better? We're surviving, that's all. Robert stopped it. They've rewritten history to justify this, painted Eleanor as some manipulative monster to ease their guilt. Was she, he considered carefully, complicated? Like all of us, she had strong opinions, high expectations, but manipulative, no. She wanted us to earn our way, not just inherit. Susan never forgave her for that. Tell me about the will, the real one. Eleanor had been planning it for years, setting up the research foundation, structuring charitable gifts. She wanted the money to mean something beyond family wealth. And Mom found out. Eleanor made the mistake of telling Susan, hoping she'd understand. Instead, Susan saw it as betrayal, accused Eleanor of loving strangers more than her own family. Did she? Robert's eyes were sad. She loved us enough to not want money to destroy us. Look how that turned out. So what happened? How did they pull this off? It started small. Susan convinced Eleanor to give her power of attorney just for convenience. Then came the medications. For anxiety, they said. Eleanor got confused, signed things she shouldn't have. Before anyone knew it, Susan had control of everything. And the death? Carefully orchestrated. Death certificate signed by a doctor who owed Susan favors. Cremation rushed through. Memorial service with a closed casket. By the time I suspected something, Eleanor had been dead for weeks. How did you find out? Accident. Saw Patricia's car at the house at 3 a.m. Investigated and heard Eleanor's voice through the window. Almost had a heart attack myself. Why didn't you call the police? With what proof? My word against theirs, plus. He looked ashamed. They offered me money, a cut of Eleanor's estate to stay quiet. I refused, but they'd recorded the conversation, made it sound like I was extorting them. Jesus, how deep does this go? Deep enough. The lawyer, the Dr. Patricia, 2 nurses who rotate shifts, plus a funeral director who falsified records and a county clerk who accepted questionable documentation. Your parents built a conspiracy of mutual destruction. Everyone's too dirty to talk. Except now I know, and I have my own evidence. Robert leaned forward urgently. What are you planning? I called Adult Protective Services, meeting with them tomorrow. They'll arrest everyone. Your parents, Patricia, probably Nathan for accessory. Even I could be charged for not reporting. So what's the alternative? Let Grandma die? I have a different plan. He pulled up a document on his laptop. Legal papers. I've been working with a lawyer in another state, someone with no connection to the family. I read quickly. Petition for emergency guardianship. Motion to invalidate power of attorney. Request for immediate removal to protective custody. This bypasses criminal charges, I asked. Initially. Frames it as a family dispute over care rather than criminal conspiracy. Gets Eleanor out first, deals with consequences later. My parents will fight. With what their recordings of me prove their guilt. My recordings prove their intent. Your evidence proves current abuse. We file simultaneously in court and with APS. Coordinated strike they can't counter. And then Eleanor decides. Press charges or not, reconcile or not, but alive and free to make that choice. It was elegant in its simplicity. Use the system against them just as they'd used it against Grandma. But something nagged at me. Why now? Why help me when you wouldn't act alone? Because you're clean. No money taken, no threats made, no blackmail material. You're the only one who can do this without ending up in handcuffs yourself. So I'm your way to save yourself. You're my way to save my mother. The rest is just survival. I studied this uncle I barely knew. Flawed, compromised, but ultimately trying to do right. Maybe that was the best any of us could manage in this mess. What do you need from me? Relief flooded his face. Everything you've gathered. Documentation, recordings, photos. We build an airtight case. File Monday morning before they know what hit them. That's 4 days away. What if they accelerate their timeline? Then we accelerate ours. But this has to be done right. One shot at surprise. Fail and they'll move her somewhere we'll never find her. He was right. I'd been operating on emotion, ready to burn everything down. But Grandma needed surgery, not amputation. Precision, not destruction. Okay, we do it your way. But if anything happens to her in the next 4 days, it won't. I'll increase my visits, keep them off balance. You gather everything we need. Monday morning, we save her. We spend another hour planning exchanging secure contact information, establishing codes in case phones were compromised. The paranoia was justified. We were planning a coup against desperate people with everything to lose. As I left the coffee shop, Robert called out softly, "Tamara, thank you for being the person I couldn't. Save the gratitude until she's actually free." But his words stayed with me as I drove home. Everyone in this tragedy had failed Grandma in different ways. The children who imprisoned her, the brother who stayed silent, the granddaughter who stayed away. Now we had one chance at redemption, one carefully orchestrated moment to undo 2 years of horror. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Friday night, I made my move. During dinner, I dropped my bombshell with calculated calm. I know about Grandma. The silence that followed could have choked us all. Mom's fork hovered halfway to her mouth. Dad's wine glass tilted dangerously. Nathan looked like he might bolt from the table. "I don't know what you think you know," Mom began, but I cut her off. "I know she's upstairs. I know you've been keeping her here for 2 years. I know about the drugs, the doctors, the money." I kept my voice steady. "And I want to help." "Tamara, sweetheart, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Grandma was going to give away millions. You stopped her. Honestly, I'm impressed." The confusion on their faces was almost comical. This wasn't the confrontation they'd prepared for. "You're impressed," Dad ventured. $12 million, I'd have done the same thing. That money belongs to our family, not some random charity. Grandma lost her mind if she thought otherwise. Mom studied me with sharp eyes. Why the sudden understanding? Because I'm broke. College loans, credit cards, barely making rent. I kept waiting for Grandma's inheritance to help, but there wasn't one because she died with nothing. Except she didn't die, and she's not broke. That money could save all of us. "It's not that simple," Mom said carefully. "Sure it is. She's old, confused, dying anyway. We're young, with our whole lives ahead. The math is easy." Nathan looked horrified. "Tamara, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want in. You need help. I can see it. You're both exhausted. Let me take some shifts. I helped with Grandpa when he was sick. Remember, I know how to manage medications, change bedding, all of it." My parents exchanged loaded glances. Dad cleared his throat. "If you're serious about helping, there are rules." "Of course." "No phones upstairs, no visitors. No discussing this with anyone ever. Not friends, not boyfriends, no one." "Understood." "And you follow our protocols exactly. The medications must be given on schedule. She can be difficult sometimes, manipulative. You can't listen to her stories." "What kind of stories?" Mom's jaw tightened. "She'll claim we're holding her prisoner, that she's not really sick. She'll beg you to call police, lawyers, anyone. It's the dementia talking. She doesn't remember that she asked us to care for her at home. She asked for this before the worst of the confusion hit, made us promise not to put her in a facility. We're honoring her wishes even though it's destroying us." The lies flowed so smoothly. If I didn't have evidence proving otherwise, I might have believed them. They'd had 2 years to perfect this narrative. "When can I start?" "Tonight, if you're serious. Patricia called in sick. We were going to manage ourselves, but..." "I'm serious. Just tell me what to do." They led me upstairs like condemned prisoners approaching the gallows. The key ring appeared locks disengaging in sequence. Mom narrated each step, ensuring I understood the security measures. "She's gotten out before..." she explained. Made it to the street once. Could have been killed. The door opened, revealing my childhood room transformed into a medical prison. Monitors beeped steadily. IV poles stood sentinel beside a hospital bed, and in that bed, propped up on pillows, lay my grandmother. She was smaller than I remembered, shrunken like something essential had been extracted. Her hair, once perfectly styled, hung limp and gray, but her eyes were alert, watching, calculating. "Mother," Mom said with false cheer, "look who's here to visit." Grandma's gaze locked on mine. Recognition flickered, then vanished as she schooled her features. "Hello, dear," she said vaguely. "Are you the new nurse?" "This is Tamara," Dad offered. "Your granddaughter." "I don't have a granddaughter." The words were delivered with perfect confusion. "I don't have anyone." Mom squeezed my shoulder. "You see, this is what we deal with. She doesn't even recognize family anymore." But I'd caught the flash of clarity before the performance. Grandma knew exactly who I was. She was playing along just as I was. My parents demonstrated the evening routine. Pills counted out carefully. So many I lost track. Vitals recorded in a logbook. IV bag checked and adjusted. They moved with practiced efficiency, but exhaustion showed in every gesture. "She needs to use the bathroom every 2 hours, Mom instructed. "There's a portable commode, but she insists on walking to the ensuite. Don't let her lock the door." "What about food?" "Protein shakes mostly. Some soft foods if she's cooperative. Everything's labeled in the mini fridge." They covered more details, which alarms meant what emergency numbers, what to do if she became agitated. Through it all, Grandma lay passive, occasionally mumbling about people long dead. Finally, my parents prepared to leave. Mom hesitated at the door. "Are you sure about this? It's not easy watching someone you love disappear." "I'm sure. Get some rest. You look like you need it." They left reluctantly, footsteps fading down the hallway. I waited, counting to 100, then turned to the bed. "They're gone," I whispered. Grandma's eyes snapped into focus. "Tamara, my God, Tamara, you came back." I rushed to her side, grasping her hands. They felt like bird bones wrapped in tissue paper. "I'm here, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I didn't know." They told everyone I was dead. Her voice was rusty but clear. "My own children killed me off like an inconvenience." "How long have you been pretending to be worse than you are?" "Months. Learned if I act confused, they give me fewer drugs. Easier to think, to plan." She gripped my hands with surprising strength. "But I'm so tired, sweetheart. So tired of fighting." "I'm getting you out. Uncle Robert and I have a plan." "Robert knows. He's been building a case. Monday morning we file papers. Emergency guardianship removal from the home. It's all arranged." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Monday, 3 more days." "Can you make it 3 more days?" "I've made it 2 years. What's 3 more days?" But her bravado cracked. "They're increasing the medications. Susan mentioned something about smoothing the transition. I think they mean to finish this soon." "Then we'll be faster. I'll take as many shifts as they'll give me. Replace the pills with vitamins if I can. Keep you strong." "Dangerous if they catch you." "They won't. I'm playing the greedy granddaughter here for my cut of the money. They believe it because it fits their world view." "My money," she laughed bitterly. "Always comes back to money. I should have given it all away years ago." "You tried. That's what started this." "No. What started this was my failure as a mother. I raised daughters who value wealth over love, control over compassion. This is my fault." "Grandma, no. They made their choices. With the values I instilled, every time I used money as reward or punishment, I taught them it mattered more than anything else. Now look where we are." We talked for an hour, me updating her on the plan, her filling in gaps about the past 2 years. The drugs had stolen much of her memory, but she remembered the fear, the confusion, the growing realization that her children intended to keep her forever. "There's a safe," she said suddenly. "In the basement, behind the water heater. Combination is your grandfather's birthday backwards." "What's in it?" "Truth, documents, recordings. I wasn't always as confused as they thought. My phone buzzed, text from Mom. "How's everything going?" "I have to respond," I told Grandma. "They're checking on me." "Go, play your part, I'll play mine." I typed back, "Fine, she's sleeping. This is harder than I thought." "Mom, it doesn't get easier. Thank you for helping." The irony burned, thanking me for helping imprison the woman who'd helped raise me, but I sent back heart emojis and reassurances playing the dutiful daughter. The night stretched endlessly. I gave Grandma her scheduled medications, but palmed half the pills, flushing them later. Checked her vitals, adjusted her position to prevent bed sores, helped her to the bathroom. All while maintaining the charade for the cameras I assumed were watching. Around 3 a.m., she dozed fitfully. I sat beside her, holding her hand, planning our next moves. 3 days felt like an eternity when each hour brought new dangers. But we'd endure, we had to. Because Monday would bring either liberation or catastrophe, and I was done letting my family choose which. Saturday morning arrived with Mom bustling into the room at 7 sharp checking monitors and logs with suspicious eyes. I'd been careful to document everything exactly as instructed, even noting Grandma's confused rambling about wanting to go dancing with Harold. "How was the night?" Mom asked, feeling Grandma's forehead. "Challenging. She kept trying to get out of bed around 4. Thought she was late for work. The office closed 20 years ago." Mom sighed theatrically. "Did you give her the morning medications?" "Was waiting for you. Wanted to make sure I had the doses right." This earned an approving nod. "Smart. Let me show you again." We went through the pharmaceutical ritual together. 15 different medications, some crushed into applesauce, others given by IV. I memorized each one. Haldol for agitation, Ativan for anxiety, Seroquel for delusions. A cocktail designed to create the very symptoms they claim to treat. "I can take tonight's shift too," I offered casually. "Let you and Dad have a date night." Mom's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's generous. What about your friends? I thought you had plans." "They'll understand. Family comes first." She studied me like a puzzle with missing pieces. "We'll see. Your father wants to discuss some financial matters with you anyway." After she left, I whispered to Grandma, "She's suspicious." "Susan was always the smart one," Grandma murmured back. "Be careful." The day passed in a strange dance of deception. I played attentive granddaughter while secretly documenting everything. My phone, hidden in my pocket, recorded conversations. When alone, I photographed medical charts, medication logs, financial documents carelessly left on the dresser. The dresser yielded an unexpected treasure: Marcus's business card with handwritten notes on the back, estate liquidation pending, Swiss accounts established, transfer timeline dependent on final disposition. They weren't just stealing her money. They were moving it offshore, preparing for the moment when Grandma's death became real and the estate could be fully plundered. That afternoon, while my parents attended Nathan's baseball game, I descended to the basement. Grandma's directions were precise. Behind the water heater, a section of paneling that looked solid but pushed inward when pressed. The safe was small, built into the foundation itself. Grandpa's birthday backwards 451-1291. The lock disengaged with a satisfied click. Inside lay Grandma's counter-conspiracy, a digital recorder, the kind journalists use, dozens of micro SD cards labeled with dates, and a letter in her shaking handwriting. "To whoever finds this, I am Eleanor Patterson. As of this recording, I am being held against my will by my daughters Susan and Patricia. They have falsified my death and are systematically drugging me to steal my estate. The recordings contained here document their crimes. Please ensure justice is served." I pocketed everything, carefully resetting the panel. These recordings would be crucial. Grandma's own testimony when she was still clear-minded enough to plan resistance. Back upstairs, I found Nathan in the kitchen, still in his baseball uniform. His face was drawn with exhaustion. "How can you help them?" he asked without preamble. "I thought you were going to save her." "I am saving her, but not by storming in like an idiot. They need to trust me first." Trust. He laughed bitterly. Nobody in this family knows what that means anymore. Nathan, I need you to keep quiet for 3 more days. Can you do that? Why 3 days? Because that's when everything changes. But if you warn them, if you give any sign, I won't. I'm done being their accomplice. He looked older than 18, aged by secrets and guilt. Just promise me you'll try to save them too. They're still our parents. I'll do what I can. But even as I said it, I wondered if saving everyone was possible. Some choices carved consequences in stone. That evening, Dad cornered me in his office. Financial documents spread across his desk like evidence of prosperity. Investment accounts, property deeds, bank statements, all built on stolen wealth. Your mother says you want to be more involved, he began carefully. I want to help the family. And yourself? I met his gaze steadily. I won't pretend I'm not interested in my future. Grandma would have wanted us provided for. Yes, she would have. His relief was palpable. Greed he understood. There are aspects of the situation you need to comprehend, legal complexities. Like the fact that she's been dead for 2 years, but her accounts are still active. His face went carefully neutral. Among other things, your mother and I have worked hard to preserve the family assets. It hasn't been easy or pleasant. I'm sure it hasn't, but the result is what matters, right? Grandma's money staying where it belongs. Exactly. He pulled out a folder. There are documents you'll need to sign. Privacy agreements, some power of attorney transfers, standard family protection measures. I pretended to read while actually memorizing. These weren't protection measures. They were incrimination devices. Sign these, and I'd be as legally compromised as everyone else. I'll need to review these with a clear head, I said finally. Maybe tomorrow. Of course. But Tamara. His voice carried warning. Once you're in, you're in. No backing out, no second thoughts. We've all sacrificed too much to have someone develop a conscience now. I understand perfectly. That night's shift brought new revelations. I finally had a chance to listen to Grandma's recordings. Her voice from 2 years ago was stronger, clearer, filled with righteous anger. March 10th. Susan came again today about the will. She cannot accept that I want the money used for research. What about your grandchildren, she keeps asking, as if Nathan and Tamara need millions to be happy, as if wealth hasn't already poisoned this family enough. March 15th. They've been medicating me. I can feel it. The fog, the confusion. But I'm documenting everything. If something happens to me, these recordings will prove the truth. March 20th. I overhead them planning. They mean to declare me incompetent, take control of everything. My own children plotting like thieves. Harold would be heartbroken. March 25th. This is my last recording. They're moving me somewhere tomorrow. I don't know where. If you're hearing this, please help me. I'm not sick. I'm not dying. I'm just inconvenient. The recordings painted a clear picture of premeditation. This wasn't a family overwhelmed by caregiving. This was a calculated kidnapping documented by the victim herself. I spent the rest of the night shift creating detailed files, everything organized, cross-referenced, backed up to multiple cloud drives. By dawn, I had enough evidence to bury them all. But as Sunday arrived, I noticed changes. Mom installed new locks on the medicine cabinet. Dad kept checking window latches. Even Nathan was enlisted to help Grandma whenever I was there, ensuring I was never alone with her for long. They knew, maybe not the specifics, but they sensed danger. The predators recognizing another predator in their midst. Tomorrow. I whispered to Grandma during a brief moment alone. Just hold on until tomorrow. They're planning something, she whispered back. Susan mentioned a special doctor coming Monday. Said it would all be over soon. My blood chilled. They were accelerating the timeline. Monday might be too late. I texted Robert urgently. They're moving tomorrow. We need to go tonight. His response came quickly. Impossible, courts closed. No legal authority. Then we go illegal. Call 911, force their hand. With what proof? They'll show power of attorney medical records showing dementia. We'll look like interfering family members. They'll lock us out completely. He was right. The system they'd corrupted would protect them until we could legally challenge it. But that meant surviving another night, another day with Grandma's life hanging by pharmaceutical threads. New plan, I texted. I'm staying with her tonight, all night. Whatever they're planning, they'll have to go through me. Dangerous. What if they drug you too? Then you'll know to move immediately. Either way, this ends tomorrow. I pocketed my phone resolution hardening like cement. Tomorrow would bring justice or disaster. But tonight I stood guard over the grandmother who'd once guarded me. The evidence was gathered. The players positioned. The final act was about to begin. Sunday evening descended with the weight of gathering storm clouds. I'd convinced my parents to let me take another night shift, playing up my exhaustion from regular life, and how helping with Grandma gave me purpose. They bought it, but their smiles were strained, their eyes watchful. Nathan had been avoiding me all day. When I finally cornered him in the hallway, his face was blotchy from crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." My stomach dropped. "What did you do?" "They knew I gave Robert your number. Dad found the call in my phone history." His voice cracked. "They said if I didn't tell them everything, they'd make sure I never got into any college. They'd destroy my future before it even started." "So you told them?" "Everything. About you meeting Robert, about the evidence you've been gathering. They know, Tamara. They know it all." The hallway seemed to tilt. "When did you tell them?" "This morning. They've been pretending all day, acting normal while making plans." He grabbed my arm. "You have to run. Leave now. They're going to—" "Tamara." Mom's voice floated up the stairs. "Could you come to the living room, sweetheart family meeting?" Nathan's face went white. "Don't go, please." But running would mean abandoning Grandma. I squeezed his shoulder. "It'll be okay." "No," he whispered. "It won't." The living room felt like a courtroom. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, united in judgment. Patricia occupied the armchair, her nurse's scrubs, a costume for this family tribunal. Even Marcus the lawyer was there, briefcase at his feet like a weapon. "Sit," Mom commanded, indicating a chair positioned alone in the center. I sat, keeping my expression neutral. "What's this about?" "Nathan told us some disturbing things," Dad began. "About your activities this week, about your real intentions." "I don't know what you mean." Mom laughed sharp and bitter. "Please, we're past games, Tamara. We know about Robert, about your little investigation, about your plans for tomorrow. Then you know I'm trying to save Grandma from elder abuse." Elder abuse. Patricia spoke for the first time. "We've cared for Mother every single day for 2 years. Fed her, bathed her, managed her medications. That's not abuse. That's love." "Love doesn't require locks and lies." "Doesn't it?" Mom leaned forward. "You think love is simple, clean. You have no idea what we've sacrificed." "Enlighten me." "Your college tuition, Grandma's money, Nathan's medical bills when he had leukemia at 10, Grandma's money. This house, our cars, the life you've enjoyed, all possible, because we managed the family finances while Mother hoarded wealth like a dragon." "It was her wealth to hoard." "Was it?" Dad's voice rose. "She inherited everything from my father's patents, his work, his genius, and she was going to give it all to strangers. 40 years of marriage, and she was going to erase his legacy." "That doesn't justify imprisonment." "We gave her 2 choices," Mom said coldly. "Sign the family trust documents or live with us under our care. She chose this." "You mean you chose this when she wouldn't comply?" Marcus cleared his throat. "From a legal standpoint, everything has been properly documented. Power of attorney, medical directives, financial management, all perfectly legitimate. Forged documents aren't legitimate." "Prove they're forged. I dare you." His smile was reptilian. "Your grandmother's signature is on everything witnessed and notarized. Any court would uphold the arrangements." "What about the death certificate? Hard to explain that away." "What death certificate?" Mom asked innocently. "There's no death certificate." Eleanor Patterson is alive and receiving home care. We simply allowed a misunderstanding to persist among extended family and friends. You held a funeral, a memorial service. Very different legally. People assumed what they wanted to assume. The twisted brilliance of it made me sick. They'd threaded legal loopholes like a needle, creating a fiction that would hold up under scrutiny. So what now? I asked. You lock me up to... Don't be dramatic, Dad said. You're going to sign some documents Marcus has prepared. Non-disclosure agreements, privacy contracts. Then you're going back to school and forgetting this ever happened. And if I refuse... Mom's smile was ice. Then we'll be forced to take protective measures. You see, you've been under tremendous stress. The death of your grandmother hit you hard. So hard that you've been having delusions, believing she's still alive. We've been so worried we've already consulted with a psychiatrist. Dr. Reginald Hoffman, Patricia added, specializes in grief-induced psychosis. He's prepared to do an emergency evaluation if needed. You'd have me committed temporarily, just until you're thinking clearly again. 3 days, maybe a week. Long enough for us to handle the situation with Robert. What situation with Robert? Marcus opened his briefcase. Your uncle has been embezzling from Eleanor for years. We've just discovered the extent of his theft. Tragic, really. The police will be very interested in the evidence we've compiled. Manufactured evidence. Evidence nonetheless. Bank transfers, forged signatures, a clear pattern of financial abuse. Who do you think they'll believe, the family caring for a sick woman or the estranged brother with gambling debts? Robert doesn't gamble. He does now. Amazing what a few casino receipts and doctored credit card statements can prove. They'd thought of everything. Every angle covered, every escape route blocked. But they'd made one mistake. They'd revealed their hand too early. Can I say goodbye to Grandma? I asked, letting defeat color my voice. Before I sign your papers... Mom studied me suspiciously. Why? Because once I sign, I can never see her again, right? That's what you're really saying. Sign and disappear, or fight and be destroyed. Don't be melodramatic. You can visit, supervised, of course. Please, just 5 minutes to say goodbye. They exchanged glances. Dad nodded slowly. Patricia will go with you. 5 minutes, no more. Patricia and I climbed the stairs in silence. At Grandma's door, she paused. You think we're monsters, she said quietly. But you don't understand. Mother broke us all in different ways. Susan with criticism, me with impossible standards. Even Robert with her favoritism that turned to rejection. We're just trying to survive her. By slowly killing her, by controlling what she used to control us with. Can't you see the justice in that? I saw only tragedy, generational trauma dressed up as righteousness, but I nodded as if understanding. The room was dim, Grandma seemingly asleep. Patricia checked the monitors while I approached the bed. 5 minutes. Patricia reminded me, settling into the chair by the door. I leaned close to Grandma, pretending to adjust her pillows. Her eyes fluttered open, alert despite the drugs. They know, Bao, I breathed, barely moving my lips. Be ready. She squeezed my hand once. Message received. I love you, Grandma, I said louder. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. Who are you? She responded vaguely. I don't know any grandchildren. Perfect performance. I kissed her forehead, palming the emergency alert button from her bedside table. One push would summon an ambulance, bypassing my family's control. Time's up, Patricia announced. I returned downstairs, defeat written across my features. Where do I sign Marcus produced documents with unseemly eagerness. Non-disclosure agreements, privacy contracts, even a statement acknowledging my recent mental health struggles, and the family's appropriate response. I signed them all, every poisonous page. Smart girl. Mom approved. Now your phone. We'll need to check you've deleted any photos or recordings. I handed it over without protest. They'd find nothing. Everything was already uploaded to encrypted cloud drives accessible from any device. Clean, Dad confirmed after scrolling through. Though we'll keep this for a few days, for your own good. Of course. Nathan will drive you back to campus tonight. Mom decided. Better you're not here when the transition happens. Transition? Grandma is being moved to a specialized facility tomorrow, somewhere better equipped for her advancing condition. Somewhere they could increase medications without witnesses. Somewhere she could quietly die without interference. I understand. But as Nathan gathered my things as my family relaxed their vigilance, I pressed the emergency button hidden in my palm. 3 clicks, the pattern for immediate response. In 10 minutes, paramedics would arrive for a cardiac event. Chaos would ensue, and in that chaos, truth might finally break free. The betrayal was complete. Nathan's confession, my family's threats, my apparent capitulation. But the game wasn't over. It had just changed rules. 8 minutes. That's how long I had before the ambulance arrived. 8 minutes to create enough confusion to save Grandma. I need to use the bathroom, I announced, standing abruptly. Mom waved dismissively, already moving on to the next phase of their plan. Marcus was pulling out more documents, probably the fake embezzlement evidence against Robert. Patricia had returned to Grandma's room to prepare for the transition. In the bathroom, I locked the door and opened the window. The old oak tree that had been my childhood escape route still grew strong, its branches reaching toward the second floor. I typed quickly on the tablet I'd hidden behind the toilet tank earlier. My backup plan. Message to Robert, 911 called. Ambulance incoming. They're moving her tonight. Get here now. Message to Dr. Morgenstern. Emergency at Patterson House. Elder abuse in progress. Please come immediately. Message to Margaret Walsh at APS urgent. Eleanor Patterson being moved against will. Need immediate intervention. 6 minutes. I flushed the toilet, ran water, then slipped out the window. The tree held my weight like an old friend. From the branches, I could see directly into Grandma's room. Patricia was adjusting IV lines, preparing for transport. A wheelchair sat ready by the bed. But Grandma wasn't playing unconscious anymore. She was sitting up, arguing. I don't want to go, she said clearly. I want to stay in my home. Mother, you're confused. This is for your own good. I'm not confused. I'm not going anywhere with you. Patricia reached for a syringe, the sedative that would ensure compliance. I had to act. 4 minutes. I dropped from the tree and sprinted to the garage. Dad's emergency generator sat in the corner, connected to the house's electrical system for power outages. I yanked the main connection cable. The house plunged into darkness. Shouts erupted from inside. Emergency lighting kicked in, but the medical equipment would be screaming alerts. In the chaos, I slipped back inside through the garage door. 2 minutes. I raced up the back stairs, avoiding the main hallway where my parents were shouting about breakers and flashlights. Grandma's door stood open, Patricia cursing as she tried to silence beeping machines. Tamara. Grandma called out, seeing me in the doorway. Is it time? It's time. Patricia spun around, syringe still in hand. You little... I didn't let her finish. The self-defense classes finally proved useful as I grabbed her wrist, twisting until the syringe fell. We grappled briefly before I managed to push her into the closet, slamming it shut and dragging the heavy dresser across the door. Can you walk? I asked Grandma. I've been practicing when they think I'm sleeping. Get me up. I helped her stand, her legs shaky but determined. We made it 3 steps before the lights flickered back on. Tamara. Mom's voice thundered from downstairs. What have you done? 0 minutes. Sirens wailed in the distance, the beautiful sound of emergency services racing toward us. But Mom was already pounding up the stairs, Dad close behind. Back to bed. I told Grandma, helping her lie down. Play sick. Play dying if you have to. She nodded immediately, going limp, eyes rolling back. I grabbed the medical chart, holding it like a shield as my parents burst in. You called 911. Mom's face was purple with rage. You stupid, stupid girl. She's having a cardiac event, I said calmly. Look at her vitals. The monitors, disrupted by the power outage, showed erratic readings. Grandma's performance, shallow breathing, trembling, sold the story. She's fine, Dad insisted. Cancel the ambulance. and have her die because you refuse treatment. That's negligent homicide. The sirens grew louder. Through the window, I saw flashing lights turning onto our street. "Marcus," Mom shouted, "get up here." But when the lawyer appeared, he took one look at the situation. Patricia pounding inside the closet, Grandma appearing to seize me standing firm with medical charts, and backed away. "I can't be here for this," he muttered, fleeing downstairs. Smart man, rats fleeing the sinking ship. The doorbell rang, loud, insistent. Emergency personnel didn't wait long before breaking down doors. "I'll handle this," Dad said, trying to project calm. "Everyone stay here." But I was already moving, shouting down the stairs. "Up here, second floor patient in distress." The paramedics took the stairs 2 at a time, 2 EMTs professional and focused pushing past my father's protests. "What's the situation?" the lead EMT asked. 83-year-old female history of cognitive impairment, showing signs of cardiac distress following power outage, I rattled off. On multiple medications, IV fluids, oxygen support. They moved into action, checking Grandma's vitals, assessing her condition. Mom tried to intervene. "She's fine. This is a misunderstanding. We have power of attorney." "Ma'am, please step back. Let us do our job." "She's not really sick." Mom's composure cracked. "She's pretending, tell the mother." But Grandma remained limp, occasionally moaning. The EMTs exchanged glances. "We need to transport her for evaluation," the lead decided. "Possible stroke or cardiac event." "You can't take her." Dad blocked the doorway. "We're her caregivers. We decide her treatment." "Sir, interfering with emergency medical care is a crime. Step aside." The moment stretched taut. Then salvation arrived in the form of Margaret Walsh from Adult Protective Services, flanked by 2 police officers. "I'm here responding to a report of elder abuse," she announced. "No one moves until we sort this out." The room erupted. Mom screaming about rights and lawyers, Dad demanding warrants. Patricia finally freed from the closet, disheveled and furious. Nathan appearing in the doorway, face streaked with tears. Through it all, the EMTs continued their work preparing Grandma for transport. She caught my eye during the chaos, winked once, then resumed her performance. "I have here." Margaret Walsh continued calmly, a petition for emergency guardianship filed by Robert Patterson, along with substantial evidence of financial exploitation and false imprisonment. Robert appeared behind the officers looking grim but determined. "That's my mother. I want her removed from this house immediately." "You have no right." Susan lunged at him, held back by an officer. "You abandoned this family." "I tried to save it from you," he replied sadly. The EMTs lifted Grandma onto a gurney. She moaned dramatically, reaching out weakly. "Tamara," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. Don't let them put me back in that room." "She's confused," Mom insisted desperately. "She loves that room. Tell them, Patricia, you're a nurse." But Patricia was backing away, calculating her own survival. I need to call my lawyer." "Your lawyer is currently being arrested for fraud," Margaret informed her. "Marcus Fitzgerald was picked up 20 minutes ago. You might want to cooperate." The house of cards was collapsing. Mom sank to her knees as they wheeled Grandma out. Dad stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed world crumble. Nathan pressed against the wall, trying to disappear. "Tamara Patterson." Margaret approached me. "We'll need a full statement, but first ride with your grandmother. She's asking for you." I followed the gurney downstairs, past the neighbors gathering on their lawns, past the police cars and ambulance, past the wreckage of my family's secrets. In the ambulance, Grandma gripped my hand with surprising strength. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved me." "We saved each other," I corrected. As we pulled away, I saw Mom in the doorway, Dad's arm around her shoulders. They looked smaller, somehow diminished by the weight of their exposed lies. The escape was complete, but the reckoning had just begun. The hospital emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos, but Grandma's cubicle felt like the eye of a storm. Doctors ran tests. Nurses checked vitals. And through it all, she maintained her performance of confusion mixed with moments of clarity. "Where am I?" she asked a young resident. "Is Harold here?" "You're at Mercy General, Mrs. Patterson. You're safe now." Dr. Morgenstern arrived within the hour, her professional mask firmly in place. She consulted with the ER attending reviewing Grandma's medication list with growing alarm. "This pharmaceutical cocktail is extremely concerning," she told the attending loud enough for the police officer taking notes. "No patient with mild cognitive impairment should be on this combination. It's actually contraindicated. You prescribed these medications?" My mother's voice carried from the waiting area where she and Dad were being questioned. "Under duress," Dr. Morgenstern replied calmly. "I'll be providing a full statement to the authorities." Margaret Walsh from APS set up a makeshift office in a consultation room. One by one, she interviewed everyone involved. When my turn came, I handed over a USB drive containing everything: videos, documents, recordings. "This is comprehensive," she murmured, scrolling through files. "How long have you been gathering this?" "A week, but my grandmother has been gathering evidence for 2 years." I explained about the safe, the recordings, her secret documentation. "We'll need to retrieve those items immediately," she signaled to an officer. "Judge Martinez issued a search warrant an hour ago." Meanwhile, Robert worked with hospital administration to establish temporary guardianship. His lawyer, the honest one from out of state, had filed emergency paperwork that morning. "The court will need to sort out permanent arrangements," he explained to me. "But for now, Eleanor is under hospital protection. No family member can make medical decisions without court approval." "What about criminal charges?" "That's up to the prosecutor. But with this evidence—" He shook his head. "Your parents are looking at serious time. Elder abuse, false imprisonment, fraud, conspiracy. Patricia too, though she might get leniency for cooperation. And Nathan. He's 18 but was clearly coerced. Likely probation, maybe community service." The weight of it all hit me then. My family wasn't just broken, it was destroyed. Criminal proceedings would drag on for months, maybe years. The scandal would be public, humiliating, devastating. But then I thought of Grandma locked in that room for 2 years and my sympathy evaporated. Around midnight, the doctors cleared Grandma medically. The cardiac event was indeed fake, though her blood work showed dangerous levels of psychotropic drugs. "We'll need to wean her off carefully," the attending explained. "Stopping suddenly could cause seizures, but with proper treatment, she should recover significant cognitive function." "How much damage is permanent?" I asked. "Hard to say. The isolation and over-medication have taken a toll, but your grandmother is remarkably resilient. I'm optimistic." Margaret Walsh returned with updates from the house search. "We found the safe. Your grandmother's recordings are damning. There's also a video we'll dated a week ago, hidden in the base of a lamp. Video will..." She recorded it herself during a lucid moment. "Names you and Robert as co-executors, specifically disinherits Susan and Patricia for acts of cruelty and betrayal. It'll hold up in court." The irony was perfect. Mom had imprisoned Grandma to steal her money only to guarantee she'd lose it all. By 3 a.m., the initial chaos had settled into exhausted aftermath. Grandma dozed in her hospital bed, finally sleeping without chemical assistance. I sat beside her holding her hand when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Tamara." Nathan's voice was small, broken. "Are you okay?" "Where are you?" "Home, alone. Mom and Dad were arrested. They're being held until the bail hearing Monday." "Nathan?" "I know you hate me. I betrayed you, betrayed Grandma. I wanted you to know I'm sorry for everything." "I don't hate you," I said truthfully. "You were trapped in an impossible situation. I could have been brave, like you. Bravery is easier when you've been away, when you haven't been living in the middle of it for 2 years." He was crying now. "What's going to happen to me?" "I don't know, but Nathan, tell the truth. All of it. It's the only thing that might save you." "What about Mom and Dad?" They made their choices. Now they face consequences. And us, our family. I looked at Grandma, peaceful in real sleep. Thought about Robert finally stepping up after years of cowardice. About Patricia probably negotiating a plea deal. About parents who'd chosen greed over love. We'll build something new, I said finally. Something better, based on truth this time. Nathan's sob was answer enough. We talked a while longer. About lawyers, about school, about the uncertain future. When we hung up, I felt the strange lightness that comes after carrying a heavy weight too long. A nurse came to check on Grandma. You should go home, get some rest. She'll be here when you wake up. I'm not leaving her, never again. The nurse smiled softly. There's a cot in the family room. I'll have someone bring you blankets. As dawn broke over the hospital painting, the sky in shades of hope, Grandma stirred. Tamara. Her voice was clearer than it had been in days. Did we do it? Am I free? You're free, Grandma. It's over. No, sweetheart. She squeezed my hand weakly. It's just beginning. The hard part comes now. Healing. Forgiving. Moving forward. Can you forgive them after everything? She was quiet so long I thought she'd fallen back asleep. Then, I can forgive the fear that drove them to it. The greed, the cruelty that will take longer. Maybe forever. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner. You came when it mattered most. That's what counts. We sat in comfortable silence as the hospital woke around us. Soon there would be more police interviews, legal proceedings, media attention. The Patterson family scandal would be gossip fodder for months. But for now, in this quiet moment, we were just grandmother and granddaughter, survivor and rescuer. Two women who'd fought a battle against family darkness and emerged into the light. It wasn't a happy ending, too much damage for that, but it was a just ending. And sometimes that's the best you can hope for. The call to 911 had started an avalanche that buried the lies. Now came the slow work of digging out truth from the rubble building, something new on cleared ground. Grandma was free. The rest we'd figure out together. Monday morning arrived with a CNN news van parked outside the hospital. The Patterson family scandal had gone national. Prominent family fakes mother's death in $1 million fraud scheme. Reporters camped in the lobby until security established a protective perimeter around Grandma's room. The prosecutor, Janet Collington, was a sharp woman in her 50s who took no nonsense from anyone. She met with Robert and me in a hospital conference room, spreading case files across the table like battle plans. Your evidence is overwhelming, she began. The recordings alone would convict, but combined with the financial documentation, the medical records, the witness testimony, your parents are looking at 15 to 20 years. That seems harsh, I said, surprising myself. For imprisoning an elderly woman for 2 years, for systematic elder abuse, for stealing millions. She raised an eyebrow. If anything, it's lenient. Robert nodded grimly. What about plea deals? Patricia's lawyer is already negotiating. She'll testify against Susan and Daniel in exchange for reduced charges, maybe 5 years out in 3 with good behavior. And Marcus. The Bar Association is moving for immediate disbarment. Criminal charges include conspiracy fraud and falsifying legal documents. He's looking at 10 years minimum. The numbers felt surreal. Years of human life reduced to legal calculations. But then I remembered Grandma's 2 stolen years and hardened my resolve. What do you need from us? Everything. Every detail, every conversation, every moment of doubt. The defense will try to paint this as a loving family overwhelmed by caregiving. We need to show the calculated cruelty. We spent hours building the prosecution's case. Timelines established evidence, cataloged witness lists, prepared. By noon, my head throbbed from reliving the past week's discoveries. The bail hearing that afternoon was a media circus. I stayed with Grandma, but Robert attended and reported back. Bail denied for both Susan and Daniel, flight risk and danger to the victim. Patricia got house arrest with an ankle monitor. How did they look? Broken. Your mother cried through the entire hearing. Your father just stared at his hands. I felt a twinge of something, not sympathy exactly, but recognition of their humanity. They were still my parents, even if they'd forfeited the right to that relationship. Grandma, meanwhile, was improving daily. The doctors had stabilized her medication withdrawal, and her mind grew clearer with each passing hour. Physical therapy helped with the muscle weakness from 2 years of confinement. Speech therapy addressed the lingering effects of over-sedation. "I want to go home," she announced Wednesday morning. "Which home?" I asked. "Your house is complicated right now." "I know. Crime scene tape and reporters. Robert showed me pictures." She patted my hand. "I meant a new home, somewhere without ghosts." Margaret Walsh had been working on placement options. Several high-end assisted living communities had offered spaces eager for the positive publicity of helping Eleanor Patterson. But Grandma had other ideas. "I want an apartment," she declared. "Small, manageable, with help available but not hovering. I've been locked up enough." "Grandma, you need care." "I need freedom. We'll hire help, proper help this time, but I make my own choices." It was hard to argue with that. Robert found a senior community with independent living apartments and graduated care options. Grandma could have her freedom with safety nets in place. The financial untangling took weeks. Forensic accountants traced the stolen money through offshore accounts and shell companies. Most was recovered, though legal fees would devour a portion. "I still want to establish the research foundation," Grandma told her new lawyer, "but with changes." "What kind of changes?" "Provisions for family, not Susan or Patricia. They forfeited that right. But Nathan and Tamara shouldn't suffer for their parents' sins. And programs for families dealing with elder care. Support systems so desperation doesn't lead to crime." "That's generous, considering." "That's practical. Punishment without understanding breeds more tragedy." Nathan's situation resolved better than expected. The judge, reviewing his cooperation and age during most of the conspiracy, sentenced him to 2 years probation and 300 hours of community service at elder care facilities. "I want to make amends," he told me after court. "Really understand what I participated in. It won't be easy, seeing other elderly people knowing what you allowed." "I know, but I need to face it." College was a question mark for him now. The scandal made him infamous on campus. But Grandma quietly paid his tuition, insisting education was the path to redemption. 2 months later, Susan and Daniel's trial began. I testified for 3 days, every word feeling like another nail in their coffin. Mom watched me from the defendant's table, her eyes pleading for understanding I couldn't give. The defense tried everything. Loving daughter overwhelmed by mother's decline. Devoted couple trying to honor confused wishes. Even claims that Grandma had agreed to the arrangement then forgotten. But the evidence was insurmountable. Grandma's recordings played in court, her clear voice documenting the deception as it happened. Financial records showed systematic theft. Medical experts testified about the damage from unnecessary drugs. The verdict was swift guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge allowed victim impact statements. Grandma, dignified in her new clarity, addressed her daughters directly. "You were my greatest joys and have become my deepest sorrows. I failed you somehow, teaching you that money mattered more than morals. For that, I'm sorry. But what you did to me, the theft of my autonomy, my dignity, my very self, that's unforgivable. I pray prison gives you time to find your souls again." Susan got 18 years, Daniel 15. Patricia, who'd testified for the prosecution, received 4 years as agreed. Marcus got 12 years and permanent disbarment. As they led my parents away in shackles, Mom looked back one last time. "I love you, Tamara," she mouthed. I couldn't respond. Love without ethics is just possession. 6 months after that first 911 call, life had found new rhythms. Grandma's apartment overlooked a small park where children played and dogs chased frisbees. Her living room hosted weekly poker games with other residents who called her the woman who lived twice. "Full house," she declared, raking in chips. "Pay up, ladies." "Eleanor, you card sharp," her friend Dolores laughed. "Where'd you learn to bluff like that?" 2 years of pretending to be sicker than I was. Excellent practice for poker. She could joke about it now, though nightmares still came. Dr. Morgenstern, her license intact thanks to her cooperation, visited monthly as a friend rather than physician. They'd formed an odd bond. Conspirators turned allies. "How are the medication adjustments?" Dr. Morgenstern asked during one visit. "Better. The fog is lifting more each day. I still have gaps moments that are just gone, but I'm here. I'm present. That's what matters." I'd returned to Northwestern but came home every weekend. The journalism major I'd been pursuing felt hollow now. I switched to law with a focus on elder rights determined to prevent other families' tragedies. Nathan thrived in his community service, discovering a calling he'd never expected. The elderly residents at Sunset Manor adopted him like a grandson, and he spent hours beyond his required time reading to them, playing chess, simply listening. "I understand now," he told me one Saturday, "what we took from Grandma, not just freedom. We stole her stories, her connections, her purpose. Understanding is the first step to healing." Is it enough? Can it ever be enough? No, but it's a start. Robert had stepped into his role as co-executor with surprising grace. Years of cowardice had transformed into determined protection. He managed Grandma's finances transparently, every decision documented and discussed. The Research Foundation launched on Grandma's 84th birthday. The Eleanor Patterson Center for Alzheimer's Research and Family Support opened with a mission to fund both medical advances and caregiver resources. "No family should face this disease alone," Grandma said at the ribbon cutting, "and no family should feel desperate enough to commit crimes." The media attention had finally died down, though occasional reporters still called seeking updates. The Patterson family scandal had become a cautionary tale, discussed in elder law classes and medical ethics seminars. Prison visits were the hardest part. I went monthly alternating between Mom and Dad. The conversations were stilted, full of things we couldn't say. "How's school?" Mom would ask, pretending we were normal mother and daughter. "Good, challenging." "And Nathan?" "He's doing well. His grades are up." We never discussed Grandma. That wound was too raw, might always be. Dad aged rapidly in prison. The financial wizard who'd helped steal millions now taught basic literacy to other inmates, finding redemption in small services. "I think about it every day," he told me once, "how we justified each step, how evil can wear the mask of love. Was any of it real love? I thought so, but love doesn't imprison. I see that now." Patricia served her time quietly working in the prison medical ward. Letters came occasionally full of apologies and self-reflection. Maybe someday forgiveness would be possible. Not yet. A year after the escape, Grandma hosted Thanksgiving in her apartment. Just her Robert, Nathan, and me. A small gathering, but genuine. "I'm thankful for truth," she said, raising her glass of sparkling cider. "Painful as it's been." To truth, we echoed. The empty chairs at the table spoke volumes. Family torn apart by greed, slowly rebuilding on healthier foundations. Would Susan and Daniel ever join us again? Could trust resurrect after such betrayal? "I've been thinking," Grandma said over pumpkin pie, "about forgiveness." We waited silently. Not for them. Not yet. But for myself. I need to forgive myself for the mother I was, for teaching them money mattered so much, for being blind to what my wealth was creating. "Grandma, you didn't make them criminals." "No, but I didn't teach them to be better. That's my burden to carry." After dinner, she showed us photo albums from happier times. Susan and Patricia as children, gap-toothed smiles and matching dresses. Family vacations before money poisoned everything. Daniel young and Ernest before ambition corrupted him. "They weren't always monsters," she said softly. "Remember that. People are more than their worst choices." As I left that night, she pulled me aside. "Thank you," she whispered. for being brave when everyone else was weak, for saving me. You saved yourself, Grandma. You survived 2 years of hell and came out fighting. We saved each other. That's what family should do. The drive back to campus gave me time to reflect on the journey, from that first locked door to this moment of fragile peace. Justice had been served, but at tremendous cost. A family shattered, rebuilt, different, maybe stronger. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Visited Mom today. She asked about you. I think she's starting to understand what she did. Understanding was progress. Accountability was essential, but redemption that remained to be seen. The Patterson family scandal would forever be our history, but it didn't have to be our future. Grandma had shown us that. You could imprison a body, but not a spirit determined to be free. As for me, I had my own path now. Law school advocacy ensuring no grandmother suffered what mine had endured. The money that had corrupted my parents would fund protection for others. Sometimes the greatest justice isn't punishment, it's prevention. Making sure the tragedy ends with you. Grandma was free. My parents were paying their debt. Nathan and I were finding our way. Robert had discovered courage. Even Patricia was seeking redemption. Broken things can heal, just never quite the same shape as before. But different doesn't mean worse. Sometimes it means stronger at the mended places. The bedroom that had been a prison was just a room now. The family that had schemed was scattered but surviving. And the grandmother who'd been erased had written herself back into existence, her story a warning and inspiration both. Some secrets are too terrible to keep. Some love is too twisted to honor, and sometimes calling 911 is the most loving act of all. Eleanor Patterson lived. Despite everything, because of everything she lived. Free and fierce and teaching us all that survival is its own form of victory. The rest was just beginning. Have you ever faced a situation where family loyalty conflicted with doing what's right? How did you handle the impossible choice between protecting loved ones and protecting victims? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone facing their own family crisis find the courage to act. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe to hear more powerful narratives about family's justice and the courage to do what's right. And share this with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to break free from toxic family secrets. Thank you for listening to Grandma's story. May we all find the strength to choose truth over comfort, justice, over loyalty and freedom over family, when those families forget that love means protection, not possession. Remember, you are never too young to be brave, never too old to be saved, and never too trapped to reach for help. Until next time, stay strong and speak truth.